I did get an email from Seth. Let's see, what did he say? I'm in urgent care with my son who may or may not have broken his wrist. I will hop on if I can. So we'll have to give Seth a little dispensation because that sounds like an emergency. So let's see, I'm going to check and see who we have so far. Tina, Paul, Seth is not, Molly, me. So we're missing Val, Audra, Jacob, and Rhett. So we'll wait a few minutes here.
I think Jacob's not going to be here.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Last I heard, he was at the lake.
Well, I mean, this is remote, so we don't mind a lake in the background. We'll accept that. Okay, thanks for letting me know, Paul. Okay. So Molly and Tina and Noor, I was just discussing with Paul that, let's see. Oh, Val has joined us. Hi, Val.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can actually. Good. So I was just discussing about the possibility. We had to set the date and time for the next special meeting at the end of this meeting. But I'm wondering whether there's a possibility that we could actually meet in person next time. It would probably be sometime next month. Paul is in for that. And so, Molly, are you okay with that?
I would love it. That would be great.
Okay. And Tina?
My heart would be willing, but my travel schedule is a bit insane next month. I am in maternal child health, and August is National Breastfeeding Month. So I am traveling a lot. And so a virtual meeting will give me more options, but I will absolutely, try to do my best. If I'm in town, I will be there, but my dates availability will be limited.
So what I was checking with Fernando, who's our technical guru, there are 2 rooms in town hall that we can meet in person and also have people dial in remotely. So that sounds like it might work for you, Tina.
That would open all the dates. Yes, that would work great.
Good. And Val, what's your availability? Would you be available to meet in person next month, depending on the day and the time we decide on?
Right. Would love to meet in person. I will be back in Argentina until the 9th. So that's my big limitation, regardless of that. Other than that, yeah, I'll be in town. I'll be very happy.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that. Did you say there's a date you're not available?
Yes, I will be in Argentina until the 9th, visiting my family. So until the August the 9th, I can only do virtual. But after that, I would love to meet in person if there's a possibility. Okay.
All right. Good. All right. Well, it's 5:04. I think we're gonna get started. My screen doesn't let me see everyone who's on the call, so I'm just going to go through the roll call, see who all is here, and we'll move along because we've got a lot to cover. Okay, so I'm going to run down the list. Is Audra on the line?
I am.
Oh, good. Okay, I didn't see you. Glad to see you. All right, Tina's here. Val is here. Well, I guess I should really do a roll call. Okay, so Audra's here. Tina, you're here.
Here.
Valerie, you're here. Valeria? Yep. Paul?
I'm here.
Okay. Seth, Jacob, not here. Molly, you're
here.
Rhett, are you on the line?
Here.
Oh, good. Okay. All right, so I think we have everyone. I guess I should probably ask which staff members are on the line. I know Nora's on the line. I think I saw Diane. Are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other staff members that I should know about? Jenny probably is on the line, right?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Thanks, Jenny. I think that's probably it. Anyone else that I'm missing? Okay. All right. So that takes care of that. So the first thing that we're going to do is look at the minutes from the last meeting, and that was held on June 1st, a little over a month ago. I've looked at the minutes and they look okay to me, but please let me know if there are any corrections that you would like to suggest before we vote on approving the minutes. Anyone have any corrections?
I have a question more than a correction, and this is probably just for my own sake of my own memory.
Okay.
Which meeting did we talk about the expedited processing option? In my head, it was last meeting, but it's clearly not in the minutes, so it must have been a different meeting.
Does anyone know that? Because I don't know that offhand, but maybe, I mean, Nora is the one that puts the minutes together. So Nora, do you remember whether that was in the previous minutes?
I don't remember, no, right off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So this is Diane, and I did not attend the June meeting. I attended the meeting prior to that, and we did talk about that.
All right. Okay.
Expedited processing. Okay, good. That's what I thought, but I don't trust my memory these days. Okay, so that it's not in here and it shouldn't be in here. So
correct.
Any other comments or questions from anyone?
I just wanted to say that if you all do end up, having questions or comments on the minutes, if you wouldn't mind emailing those to Nora ahead of time, that way we don't have to spend time on during the meeting on minutes. We can get the corrections done for everyone's review.
Okay, I think that's a great suggestion.
All right, thanks.
Good idea, Diane. Thank you. Okay, so if there are no other comments or corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as they stand.
So moved.
And who was that?
Sorry, this is Tina.
I see that. I'm sorry. Okay, I had to concentrate on which little circle has a ring around it. Okay, so Tina is making a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second. This is Molly.
Okay. Thank you, Molly. Okay, I'm going to just do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And anyone opposed say nay. All right, the minutes have been approved unanimously. All right, thank you. Okay, next is really the core of the meeting, I think, and that is to look at the annual housing report, the draft that was put together by the staff. And with a lot of work and effort and so forth. And so, first of all, I just want to back up a second and say that CJ unfortunately could not be with us today because he had a death in the family. So between Nor and Jenny and I, we're going to do our best to cover the items on the agenda. And this particular item, number 3, is going to involve the 3 of us, but mainly Jenny and Nor. In fact, let me just tell you.
So Phil, I just had a recommendation. We have 30 minutes for this and we have 30 pages, and I understand we want to go page by page. So what I've asked Jenny and Nor to do is to provide a summary of each page, since you all did have it to review on your own prior to this. And then we can take questions on each page. So if you don't mind, that's what I've asked them to do, just so we can get through the agenda today.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think if they can do a quick summary of each page, I mean, actually, it's less than 30 because there are a lot of, banner pages and appendices and so forth. But that's fine. I'm in favor of going through this. I did ask the members of the Housing Advisory Board to take a look at it beforehand so that I could be prepared to ask questions, and I've certainly done that. But in any event, what we're going to do is Jenny is going to go through the community profile, which is the first few pages, 4 through 7. Nora is going to go through the action plan progress, couple pages, and I'll chime in when necessary. The near-term recommendations, Nora is going to also do, and the midterm recommendations, Nora will do, and then the long-term recommendations. So we'll just go ahead and I think at this point, Nora, I guess you're the one controlling the screen. I think if you can just page briefly through each of the next couple of pages and then just kind of land on the first page in the community profile, I think that would be good.
Hi, Phil. This is Jenny. I've actually got control of the screen, so I'll go ahead and get started.
Oh, good. All right.
So as you can see, we have our lovely cover page for the annual housing report for the fiscal year. We have a table of contents. Each of these sections is hyperlinked, so if a user chooses to click on any of these, it will bring them directly to those portions. We have an introduction letter, given that the department the department is so new. An introduction telling everybody sort of what the department's purpose is, and signed by CJ, who is currently the housing program manager. And then we get into our community profile. The purpose of this section is to sort of give a demographic overview of the town, as well as introduce the residents to the affordable housing crisis that is currently going on. On this first page, we outline some pretty basic ACS census estimates. Unfortunately, the most recent census data is the 2020 data, and the newer data will not be released until after the end of this year. We have some pretty classic statistics on here, including population, number of households, household size, median household income, distribution of households by income, as well as households by tenure. Are there any comments on this slide?
No,
Okay.
I just, am I on? Yeah. I just wanted to point out the fact that we have 25% renters and 75% owners. There are a lot of towns that would love to have that mix. For some reason, they think that having more owners than renters is a good thing. I don't know. I'm kind of neutral on that. But it is an important point that we need to keep in mind. So it could be that we may need to encourage more in the apartment building, because that's probably where the lower income households, especially our essential workers, are going what they're going to need. So that's about the only comment I have on this page.
I think that's a really good comment. I think as affordability is becoming elusive, I think it's just going to become increasingly difficult, especially for young people, to get into an ownership situation. So I think you're dead on, Phil. I think we're likely to see that percentage change.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul. I think you can go on, Jenny, unless there are other comments.
Okay, so on this next slide, we begin to introduce what affordable housing means, including a definition, the official definition that we as a town are using for affordable housing, and introduce a couple of more statistics rounding out what the affordable housing issue is, including the HUD AMI for the current year. The interesting note that it jumped by 15% from the 2021 AMI. Market rates for homes, a 2-bedroom townhome and a 2-bedroom apartment, and how they compare to households making 100% AMI, 80% AMI, and 60% AMI. These points are basically to begin to illustrate or to begin to develop the narrative that there is an affordability crisis in Apex, so that on the next slide, we can begin to quantify that. Are there any changes that are requested for this slide?
Jenny, this is Molly. I have a question. How does the median market rate of 623 compare countywide or to Cary or Holly Springs or, other locales?
I don't have that data right on hand, but I can happily send you and the rest of the board an email with that information.
Yeah, I was just curious. That number is crazy. That's just crazy.
Yeah, and that's both for new and existing home
Right.
sales, right?
Yeah, it's a median. Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, the other interesting thing here to me is that the AMI for a 3-person household within the town is $99,100, and I assume that is well, that's for the Raleigh statistical area, I guess, or whatever, and that compares to the slide before that showed that Apex's median household income was $112,550. So, the question is it because of the lack of affordable homes that we have, number one, so many homeowners, and number two, much higher household incomes here? I suspect that that's probably the case.
Anecdotally, I would agree.
That's Tina. Yeah, thank you, Tina.
Yeah, sorry, I will make sure I state my name. Yeah, Tina. Yeah, anecdotally, purely anecdotally, I would agree that young families that I'm meeting end up, and so I think actually to the point that conversation that was had on the other slide, I think to the point that young families, young individuals are moving into Apex and renting. They're able to do that, but then while they want to stay, they've located Apex, this is where they want to build their families. They do end up getting priced out of the market and moving to our sister cities and sister towns. So I think that's something. While we absolutely want to make sure we have a rental market and apartment complexes, the idea that a family is now unable to enter the market early is a challenge as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very, very good point.
Any other comments or changes before I move to the next slide? Hearing none. Okay. So then, as I mentioned before, these next two slides begin to actually quantify what our housing affordability crisis may look like. These slides are going to be using, again, ACS data, which is census data 5-year estimates from 2016 to 2020. We define the difference between extremely cost-burdened and cost-burdened households, which are households that are spending more than 50% and between 30 and 50% respectively on housing. In this case, there are 770 extremely cost-burdened households, renter households, and an additional 915 renter households that are cost-burdened, which amounts to a total of 1,685 renter households that are cost-burdened or extremely cost-burdened within Apex. In the graphic below, you can see those households distributed by income band. Dark green is going to be cost-burdened, and light green is extremely cost-burdened. Are there any changes or requests for this slide?
It's not really a change request. It's just, I'm glad that you bolded that last sentence there that says together there are more than 1,685 renter households, or 34%. So 1 out of 3 of our renter households is cost burden. So that's a very eye-opening figure to me. And that also would indicate that maybe that's where the programs need to be to provide affordable homes to that segment of the market. Any other questions? Any other comments? Okay.
Hearing none, I'll move on.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a similar slide. However, this time we're demonstrating the affordability crisis on the owner household side. In this case, there are 710 owner households that are extremely cost burdened, and 1,510 owner households that are cost burdened, which amounts to 2,220 households that are at least cost burdened within the town. So about 15% of those households. And again, similar graphic, just owner households this time instead of renter households. Comments, questions, concerns?
Just a comment. At some point, we're going to be talking about programs for first-time homebuyers, both in terms of financial assistance and also counseling. And I think this is probably a slide that will indicate the need for that.
Yeah, very good data to have. This is Audra.
Thank you, Audra. And you know, number-wise, this is more than the cost-burdened renters, but because this is a larger base, it's only 15% of the owner households, but it's still a lot. I mean, you know, the way I think about it is if I think about what my housing costs are right now, and then I say, well, could I get by on a budget for the rest of my costs on a figure that's the same as what I'm paying for housing? That's basically what, you know, paying 50% of your income for housing would amount to. And you know, you're really squeezed on all the other expenses, and you know, that's the problem.
Okay. So I'm gonna pass the mic. I will retain screen control, but I'll pass the mic over to Noor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jenny. So now we're going to be moving into the action plan progress part of the report. So this slide is just highlighting the adopted affordable housing plan. So we state the vision that's outlined within the plan. We also give an overview of the 14 recommendations to help achieve that vision. So as you can see, we have the near-term, midterm, and long-term recommendations, as well as the time frame for all of those. We have a picture of the affordable housing plan, as well as right below that, we have a link that people can click on to easily access the plan in its entirety. And this is also how the rest of this report is really structured based on the progress that we've made with all of the recommendations. So does anyone have any comments or questions about this slide?
No questions, but as you go through the slides, I will tell you that seeing this in real time was inspiring. So I just want to express my appreciation to the staff, because seeing the progress that's been made was just phenomenal. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I would second that. That's a good comment, Tina.
All right, so now we're moving to show the Affordable Housing Fund and just the commitments that have been made with the fund for the past fiscal year. So we highlight the Apex Cares Housing Rehabilitation Program. We highlight Broadstone Walk. We give examples of what the goals were, the types of commitments, and also the dollar amount that's been committed from the plan.
So just one comment in terms of consistency from this slide to a later slide. I think there's a figure of $500,000 for the Apex Cares Housing Rehabilitation Program later on, and that really reflects. I mean, $250,000 is correct for this fiscal year, or for really last fiscal year, 2021 to 2022. But coming up on the next fiscal year, we really combined last year's $250,000 with this year's $250,000. So we actually have a total of $500,000,
Right.
That's accumulated over the 2 years, I guess is the way to say it. The other thing I wanted to point out quickly here is that I had a chance to talk to Tim Fisher, who's DHIC's project manager for Broadstone Walk last week. I was putting together a update for the advocacy team. And what he told me was that Broadstone Walk is currently under contract negotiations with a general contractor, along with reviewing some paperwork and so forth. The important point that I think is the DHIC anticipates finalizing the commitments by mid-July, so the middle of this month, and aims to begin site work towards the end of the summer, beginning of the fall. So we should see some progress at the site sometime, this half of the year, basically. So that's really good news, because we could really use those 164 rental units.
I have a quick question, not so much about the slide, but just about funding in general. Has there been any talk of doing like what a number of communities have done and having a bond, an affordable housing bond, so that more funds could become available?
Typically, bonds are just a funding mechanism. They're a way to structure your debt. They don't actually bring in more money. So what our council did was actually better. They set aside actual general funds toward affordable housing. The bond is just a financing mechanism. So when you see a transportation bond, it's just the way you finance your debt.
Right. Okay.
I mean, Diane, I think it's fair to say that Apex might consider a housing bond sometime in the future, but it probably would be a good idea to have some kind of track record of success in order to make the case for that with the voters. I mean,
I know that Raleigh and Durham both have done it, and probably be a real good idea to keep an eye on what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Good point.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, Nora, I think you can move ahead.
Sure. So this is our title slide for our near-term recommendations. So our first near-term recommendation was to build the town's staff capacity to be able to successfully implement the goals from the Affordable Housing Plan. So under actions taken, we show how CJ was hired as the housing program manager, and we have his bio. And then we show myself and also my bio as well. So if there aren't any. Okay, great. So then our next near-term recommendation was the Housing Advisory Board. So we talk about the purpose of creating the board. We show the time frame. We also show the HAB appointments. So we show the members, you all, and also your term limits. So are there any comments for this slide?
Now, the only comment is that obviously I didn't realize that the UDO had to be amended in order to have the Housing Advisory Board. It makes sense. I just didn't realize it. So that's why it took from July, when CJ came on board, to September, when the UDO was adopted through an amendment by the town council, to finally appointing us as members of the Housing Advisory Board at the end of October. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay.
So our next near-term recommendation is regarding the affordable housing incentive zoning. So we state the purpose of the incentive zoning policy. We talk about the development. We also give a timeline so that the public can see the different steps that have been taken. And then we conclude with the approved market rate developments with affordable units.
Yeah, I think that paragraph at the bottom is really important. I was not aware that, I don't know what period of time this is over. I assume it's during maybe the last fiscal year, from July 2021 to June, last month. But that's really good that a total of 53 affordable housing units were committed, and included 34 affordable ownership units and 19 affordable rental units. So you can see there that it's still skewed a bit towards the home ownership units. I think that's just a matter of the momentum of the single family home building. But, I think once DHIC's 164 units come online, that will be a huge, number on the apartment side, on the rental side. So that's good.
Hey, I have a question. This is Rhett. I have a question on that statement down there at the bottom where it talks about the 53 affordable units. Is there a way to note what percentage of the units that is? You're right. I mean, like, are there 400 units and 53 of them are affordable of the ones that have been approved? You see what I'm saying?
Yep. That's
a percentage, right? Just for understanding.
Yeah, so the percentage is a little bit over 2%. So, I mean, that's something to think about when the affordable housing incentive zoning policy, I think we're shooting for 5%. It'll be about twice as much as what is being offered currently, but we can get you that exact number.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's helpful for the conversation, I think, because we had a lengthy conversation about 5 versus 10%, right? So I think it would be helpful for us to know what we have generated or what y'all have generated, not we. So it's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good.
Just to clarify, that's of the projects that offered affordable housing units. That 2%, a little bit over 2%.
Sure.
There may be projects that didn't have any affordable housing units, particularly prior to when, CJ got here and was able to help us. So I think going forward, it will. I would say that we would only want to talk about the percentage of projects that included any kind of affordable housing condition.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it would be good to see what the percentages are on the ownership side versus the rental side. Tina, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Rhett, I appreciate you lifting that question because Diane, I wonder if there is a bit of a fuzzy middle that we can reference as we're eventually, we'll be sort of just referencing back to this point of, discussions of the affordable housing policy, point when the policy wasn't raised, but zoning requests were coming before planning board and council that were appealing to the town's desire to move in that direction. I don't know how much we can. I would be curious, as I'm thinking back on the planning board, there are several developers who, have come forward and have talked about, maybe pointed to, and I realize it's going to be really fuzzy, and maybe there isn't an actual number that we can sort of solidly come up with, but I think it's a really good point that just there is this transition that's happened from pre-policy to when the policy is being created and formalized to when the policy will be in full effect. And I just want to name and appreciate that there is that fuzzy middle that exists that we are working to continue to have these conversations. Does that make sense, or is that too fuzzy of a number to actually derive?
I think we just need to stick with, for the projects that provided units, what percentage of the overall units did they provide? Because we had projects that, offered funds, which we can't really do anymore. We had projects that didn't offer any necessarily. So I think the best way to do it would be, if you all would like a number, it would be the percentage of units in projects that offered units.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Thank you, Diane. Okay, right. Go ahead.
Our next near-term recommendation is about owner-occupied rehabilitation assistance. So this is where we talk about our rehab program. So we discuss the purpose of the program, which is to help low-income homeowners get the necessary repairs that they need for safe and sanitary housing to be able to age in place, etc. We then give a paragraph of the purpose of the program, and we also highlight some important numbers, including the total funding to date. We also show the funding that's been allocated for this past fiscal year. We show that we've already had 8 projects that have been completed, 19 applications received, and 19 projects that are currently in the pipeline. We also give images of an example of home improvements that can be made by showing the before and after pictures through the program. So does anyone have any comments about this slide?
I'd like to make, this is Paul, I'd like to make a comment just in case anybody ever becomes critical in saying, you know, why is the city trying to give people free home improvements? And we've worked real closely with Rebuilding Together at the Triangle, and I can tell you, you know, these aren't people coming in and getting granite countertops on their kitchens. It's really all about making these places that were basically uninhabitable to being habitable, to being safe. Because when we started our partnership with Rebuilding Together, we had people that were saying, well, we need to do more, we need to do more. And the leadership of Rebuilding Together said, we're not here to make it beautiful, we're here to make it safe. And I think it's really great that the town is getting behind this. And I just want to make sure everybody kind of understands that it's truly a safety issue.
And this is Molly. I just want to echo that what Paul said. It is one of the best bangs for the buck, I think, to programs to keep people in their homes safe for $500,000. That's just amazing. But I do have a question on the math. If 8 if 8 projects are completed and 19 are in the pipeline, wouldn't there be 8 plus 19 applications received, or are those 19 additional applications received? I can't understand the math there.
Nor do you need to do some research on that, or do you know offhand what the answer to that is?
I believe it's 19 additional.
So just
yes, but I can, if you'd like, I can double check on that, and we can maybe try to make those numbers a bit more clear.
Yeah, the last sentence says 8 projects completed with an additional in the pipeline. So
yes,
that sentence does clarify that, but the graphic could be cleaned up a little.
Sure.
So, and I guess the other point, Nor, is that the 8 projects that were completed, I presume they were completed in the fiscal year 2021 to 22, because that's basically just ended. And the 19 projects in the pipeline, that probably indicates at least 19, hopefully that will be completed in this fiscal year, 2022 to 2023. And not necessary to, to clarify that in this, but I'm just doing that for my own benefit. The other thing that you may not know, and maybe we don't need it, but I don't think the 8 projects took $250,000. That was the allocated funding, which is correct. At some point, maybe not this year, but maybe for the annual housing report next year, we might want to indicate what the average expenditure was per project, because that will really highlight, the point that Paul and Molly made, that you really get a lot of bang for the buck with these projects. I mean, if you're preserving an affordable home that under other circumstances might be sold and demolished, and you're preserving it as naturally occurring affordable housing, you're keeping that in the inventory, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, Phil, I was going to say something. This is Rhett. I was going to say something similar, that I am making the assumption that those 8 projects were not only 250,000 total, right? I'm assuming that maybe not. I don't know, but I think it would be helpful to know that somewhere, so that you can, show even the impact that Apex has made on its own to keep those, homeowners safe. Maybe it is 31,000 per project, but I'm guessing it's not. Maybe it costs more than that, as you said, Phil, right? Just a comment.
Yeah.
Phil,
Yeah,
this is Audrey. So we do know that there was money left over. So we know it was less than that. So
yeah, that's what I figured. Okay. And again, maybe this is an enhancement for the next affordable or for the next annual housing report. Okay, any other comments on this? Okay. That's the next one. Okay, Nora, you can go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So this is discussing the low-income housing tax credit gap financing. So we discuss Broadstone Walk, which is going to include 164 low-income affordable housing rental units. And we emphasize how this will be the largest 100% affordable housing rental project in the town's history, which is very exciting. The second project that we highlight is Abbey Spring, which will be providing 84 residential low-income rental units for the senior population. And we also highlight how this will be the largest 100% affordable housing senior rental project in the town's history. And we also provide renderings of both of the projects. So are there any comments?
I mean, these are affordable housing projects for Apex that are unprecedented, and we really need them. Broadstone Walk is already committed. Abbey Spring, the second application for the 9% tax credits is already in. They'll know by August whether they get them. I mean, these are desperately needed affordable homes. So I like, Nora, I like the way it's highlighted that 10% of the affordable units will be set aside for disabled and unhoused, and an additional 10% will be set aside for basically for the voucher program. So this is good stuff. This is really good. Okay.
Okay, so now we're moving into our midterm recommendations. So our first midterm recommendation is the annual housing report and the online dashboard. So this is the annual housing report, the draft that we're viewing now. So under actions taken, we describe the process of the development of this draft. Additionally, we discuss the development of the online housing dashboard and the purpose of it. So does anyone have any comments about this slide?
I just wanted to point out this is a whole year ahead of time. You all are reviewing a report that was not in the timeline until next year. So that's to CJ's credit and the other staff's credit. Yeah,
that's a really good point, Diane. I mean, this is the part of the reason for this. I mean, obviously it's communicating with the town council and the planning board, but it's also communicating to the public. And I think letting the public know of all these accomplishments, even in the first year, is really significant. So I think this will allow us to, have success build upon success. That's great.
Diane, thank you for pointing that out. I was astounded at looking at it and did not have that context that this was even ahead of schedule. Thank you so much for pointing that out, and huge hats off to the staff. I know CJ isn't here, but to Nora and to the entire staff.
Yep.
All right, so our next midterm recommendation is regarding diversity and racial equity initiatives. So under actions taken, we describe how the town hired a diversity, equity, and inclusion director, Linda Jones, in February of 2022. Additionally, we describe how we've deployed an accessible marketing strategy to make sure that all housing information is easily accessible to all members of the public. And we describe our methods of creating awareness and give a few examples under those with those bullet points.
Yeah, I think it's really important that, we highlight the fact that there are multilingual options, both for the information as well as for the applications. That's good.
So here we're discussing the Affordable Housing Advocacy Partners recommendation. So we give examples of the partnerships that we've been able to create with different organizations. And we highlight how we've created those partnerships and what we've been able to achieve through those partnerships. So we just give, of course, the name of the organization and a brief explanation of how we've partnered with them. So are there any comments about this slide? All right, so our next midterm recommendation is support for home ownership. So we describe the importance and the purpose to increase access for home ownership for first-time home buyers. We discuss the Habitat for Humanity of Wake County Casena Lane project. We discuss how we've partnered with Habitat and the progress that we've made with those 9 new affordable single-family homes on Casena Lane. Additionally, we discuss our home ownership programs in education and how town staff has collaborated additionally with organizations regarding fair housing, homebuyer education, counseling, and so on. Are there any comments about this slide? All right.
Okay.
We can move on. So this recommendation is about our public land acquisition and sale. So under actions taken, we talk about the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, and how the town was awarded the funds through ARPA. We also discussed how town staff created an affordable housing inventory and site analysis. So we just discuss how we created those different databases and went about the site analysis, as well as looking at our housing inventory in the town.
Okay, I just have 2 comments on, well, 1 comment on each of these. One is that it's great that the town is getting as much as $4 million of ARPA funding. I believe that it has to be spent in a certain period of time. But my question is, what role can the Housing Advisory Board play in kind of prioritizing and selecting projects that might be candidates to use the money for? I know that the $3 million is probably going to be used for land acquisition, site acquisition, and that's great. But there's an additional $1 million. So I just want to offer, and this is mainly for you, Diane, if there's a way that the HAB can help out with, finding projects that could use the money, then we're available to help with that. And the second thing is, I'm really glad to hear about the affordable housing inventory and site analysis. And I would like that at some point, maybe the staff could present to the Housing Advisory Board what the results of that analysis was, if it's able to be, provided to us either publicly or privately. And I see Audra has her hand up. Go ahead, Audra.
Thank you, Phil. One of the things that we do need to consider with this this type of funding for land acquisition is something like, land for mobile home parks and things like that. That is some of our most affordable ways for people to stay in place when it is super expensive. And so that it might be something we can explore and make recommendations to it at some point. But I just wanted to put that out there as a possibility, not to forget, not just about, building homes and things like that, but having access to places to have mobile homes.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd like that suggestion a lot. Okay, thank you, Audra. Any other comments on this slide?
I had a question.
Okay.
But it's just a question, and maybe it was answered at some point. Does any of this plans and this funding would include also homeless shelters and resources for people who don't have a home but are already in the area?
I think later on we're going to be discussing what's been going on with emergency support and so forth. I forget exactly the title for it. That's probably as close as we get to that. We had the discussion when, among the steering committee members when we were putting together the affordable housing plan, and I think the opinion or the consensus was that the money, the implementation of projects under the affordable housing plan should probably concentrate on, permanent housing as a part of the long-term solution, as opposed to temporary support for homeless shelters and so forth. But that's a really interesting and potentially controversial discussion. But I appreciate your bringing it up, Val.
All right, thank you. I'm just wondering because of the mobile home and stuff. But thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so this is our final midterm recommendation, which is regarding transit-oriented development density. So here, under actions taken, we describe how in last February, Town Council approved amendments to the 2045 land use map. We also highlight how the town is currently participating in a TOD study along the S-Line rail corridor with 6 other communities. We give this graphic showing the categories with the densities as well as the intent, the purpose, and then we give a few example graphics here. So are there any questions about this? All right, I think we can move on. So now we're moving into our long-term recommendations, which are 5 to 10 years. And so since our housing staff is very new, we haven't been able to get to a lot of these, but we have been able to get to a few. So here we talk about the long-term recommendation about the emergency rental assistance and supportive services. So the purpose of this is to support residents who are at risk or facing homelessness and populations that are vulnerable. So here we discuss the COVID-19 emergency response through the utility customer assistance program that the town has created. We discuss the approximate amount of the funding that has been approved. We highlight the number of households that have been served, as well as the amount of the funds that have been dispersed. So are there any comments on this slide?
Paul?
Yeah, I just had a question earlier on where there was kind of the overview of the plan. And one of the long-term recommendations was develop soft density by right policies. And of course, I know that you said that, obviously we're in the early stages and not everything's been looked at yet, but could you tell me what that means?
This is Diane. So the current planning section of my department is working on this already. We're looking at missing middle housing. We're looking at accessory dwelling units. We're looking at mobile home parks and looking at our unified development ordinance to see if there are things that we could change about our ordinance to make all of these things easier, all of these things more likely to be done. And so we're working on that. We have a graduate student from UNC who's been doing research for us this summer, and we expect that we'll have some things this fall to present to our planning board and council about that. And it's not going to be it'll be market rate, but to make market rate more affordable. And so that's my understanding of what that is talking about.
Thank you. I think that sounds great.
Thank you, Diane. Any other comments on that slide? So there's still funds left to disperse. So this is a program that will continue on into this fiscal year and potentially beyond, depending on the availability of funding. Okay. There are appendices. We didn't plan to talk about them, but if you have any questions about the appendices, there's some important information in here. Nora, maybe you can quickly go through what's in the appendix.
Hi, Phil, this is Jenny. I can run through it really quick.
Okay, thank you.
So the appendix, like Phil said, just adds a little bit more detail that we didn't think needed to be on the original slides, but we wanted the public to have access to. This includes what costs comprise, the term housing costs. So for renters, it's rent and utilities. For ownership households, it's mortgage payments, utilities, property taxes, home ownership insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these are the costs that are defined by the HUD. So pretty standard stuff.
Okay.
We have the area median income limits broken down further. So earlier in the report, we mentioned a 3-person family size. This is because our average household size is 2.83, so we rounded up to 3. But we do break it down even further back here. So if you wanted to look at any category around here, you can see it in this slide. These are, again, defined by the HUD. We also then include historic comparisons for cost burden and extremely cost burden households. You'll notice a slight color shift here. Instead of breaking up the categories, it is just the full amount of households that are cost burdened and extremely cost burdened. 2018, which is the year that the Affordable Housing Plan used, is in light green. 2020 is in dark green. And we have this broken out by rental households and ownership households. And then we also have the sales price data that we mentioned earlier in the report broken out into a little bit more of a table so it can be seen in a different way. And it also includes a little bit more description as to what is included in an initial sales price assumption and where our data is from. Similarly, we also have the rent data that's mentioned ahead as well, broken down by bedroom size, average monthly market rate, affordable rent limits at 60% AMI, and the dollar difference between them. And that is it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jenny.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is an item that we are asked to take action on, and the action is to approve the report that's just been presented to us. Is there any discussion on kind of overall the report? I mean, I think it represents a lot of work on the part of the staff, and in particular CJ and Nora. So I applaud what they've been able to do. But if there are any discussion on approving this is the form that it would be published in, I believe. And so this is basically the way it would be presented to the planning board. I don't know whether there's going to be a formal presentation to the planning board and to the town council. It wouldn't surprise me. Hopefully CJ might be back by that time and can help out with Norm and Jenny. But this would also be published. It says publication to the town website, so it would be available to the public to view as well. And I mean, the public is invited to these meetings also, so the public has gotten this preview. So is there any discussion about whether we're at a point where we can approve this as as it stands right now?
Phil, this is Audra. I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
This is Red. I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Red. Okay, now I think we can do any discussion that we need, and then once the discussion is over, we can take a vote. I think we have a quorum here, even without Seth and Jacob today. So any discussion? Paul, I see your hand up.
I wanted to commend the staff for all their work on this. I know that this board has been so singularly focused on incentive zoning. There's so many other components of the town's affordable housing plan that we as a group haven't really got to focus on and talk about. And it's, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and it's good to see the other parts and kind of how things are going. And again, kudos to town staff.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah. And Audra, did you want to make a comment?
Sure. So yeah, I also just wanted to say staff has done a great job on this. This took a lot of work and we're seeing the data, come up and laid out in this form is just, it makes it succinct so people can understand it better. It lays out the highlights very easily, and I think they've done a great job. And I would be glad to see this.
Okay, great. And I guess the reward for CJ and Nor is that there now is a job posting out for a senior, I forget exactly what the title is, but basically someone to help out. And I think that would be great. But that's aside from approving this particular report. So any other discussion before we take a vote? And I am going to do this by roll call because this is important. Oh, good. Thank you. So I am going to go from the bottom up. And I know Tina and Audra are non-voting members. So I'm going to start with Molly. And as I call your name, if you would just say aye or nay, that would be great. Molly?
Aye.
Okay. We're going to skip over Jacob and Seth. Paul?
Aye.
Okay. Valeria?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. Rhett?
Yes, aye.
Okay. And I'm also aye. So it's really the five of us that are voting members that are present that are voting for this. And we have two absent members. So I don't know whether that's considered unanimous, but it's everyone that's present is voting in favor of it. So I guess my only question at this point, and we're going over time, I see that. My only question is there any idea of when this actually will be published? And if you need to consult with CJ and let us know, that's fine. But Nora, do you have any idea?
I think we were just waiting for this meeting to publish, but based on the feedback, there really isn't too much to change in terms of content. So we're pretty much, I believe, ready to go to officially publish the report. Okay. Well, that sounds good. Sounds like maybe sometime later on this month it will be published. That would be great. Okay. So with that, I think we can move on to the next item on the agenda. I'm grabbing from my agenda here. And so that's the Affordable Housing Incentive Zoning Policy. And I had a suggestion, if I can find it here. So I wanted to take a minute. I think this is it. No. I wanted to take a minute to kind of take a step back and ask if there's anything, and I put this in the email that was sent around to the members. Do we think that there's anything in what we've been going through with the Affordable Housing Incentive Zoning Policy that we might be missing? And we did a lot of detailed polling
and putting together opinions on various zoning policy items. But is there anything that we're missing here? And I did have something that I had put down, but I'll open it to the rest of you.
Phil, this is Paul. Regularly emailed to us in advance of these meetings are the Incentive Zoning Policy Procedures Manual, as well as the Incentive Zoning Policy Administration Manual. Are we going to, at some point, are we going to spend any time on those?
Yes, my understanding from talking to CJ is that, I mean, we've sort of been going through the policy manual. And well, I see Diane has her hand up, so I'm going to defer to Diane.
So one thing, and I have not spoken with CJ about this because I he expected to be here today, but in looking at the document, I'll just tell you that typically our advisory boards, like you all, definitely are involved with all of the policy recommendations, but the administration portion is typically staff only. For example, in our Unified Development Ordinance, Planning Board makes recommendations and Council approves all kinds of policies for development, but it's actually the staff's job to put together the procedures for how to do the reviews, the application forms, all of that. And so I know that CJ's worked very hard on the administration manual, but it's not typically something that you all would go through line by line to consider. And I'm going to talk with CJ about that. I think that he thought perhaps you would do that, but that is not how we do it in Apex. We typically, the policy is 100% you all, but you don't need to get in the weeds of how we administer the policy. And I know he shared it with you, so if you've read it and you have suggestions for him, I think that it's perfectly fine to email him or talk with him about things that you may have knowledge about, but I'm not sure that you all need to spend your valuable time in these meetings going through that administrative document.
Well,
yeah, I mean, there's the administration manual and there's the procedures manual. And so are you saying that maybe we would spend some time on the procedures manual, but not the administration manual, or that we wouldn't spend time as a group on either?
I don't think, if you guys do this, we're not going to have an incentive policy for another whole year. I just can tell you that there's no possible way. It's going to be another whole year. And we, on the development side of things, are desperate for you all to go ahead and get your recommendations on the policies and let us get moving with that, because, we're not getting as many units as we could be getting when this policy's not been adopted.
Okay, good comments, Diane. Thank you. So in terms of
just before we wrap that up, to be clear, if I did have any questions about any of the language in these, I should maybe just get with CJ offline. We're not going to have like a meeting where we talk about these.
That would be my preference, unless as a group you all want to go individually through these procedure manuals and administrative manuals. I don't, CJ is the expert. He has done this for his whole career. He knows what he's doing. And so I do think if you have specific things you would like to talk to him about it, that's appropriate, but I just don't see how that's a valuable use of this group's time to go through it together.
Well, I agree that I don't think anybody wants to go through both of these line by line, as you say. But I thought maybe there might even be just kind of a, we've read them. Does anybody have any questions or comments or whatever? I'll talk to CJ.
Well, he had slides for today about that, but I cannot answer your questions. And so I talked with Nora and I said, we don't need to go through all the slides that CJ prepared, because no one that's on this call can give you a summary or answer your questions necessarily. So, like I said, if, he may be doing a summary, he did have slides, but he also had voting slides, which I don't think you all need to vote on those two documents. I think, what we just did with the annual report was good, where there's just a quick summary and then if you had specific questions. But when you get into the nitty gritty details, you're really getting in the weeds with these policies. If you took a look at what he had sent with the attachments. Yeah. So.
Okay, that's fine. I would like to understand a little bit better what the process would be of, like when a developer comes, Diane, and talks to your staff, and you have the procedures manual and the administrative manual. How exactly, and not exactly, but just kind of an overview on how those would be used in the process of negotiating with, between the staff and the developer. I have no idea what would happen there.
It's not unlike what we've been doing now. We have pre-application meetings with every developer who wants to do a project in Apex. They meet with staff. We would provide them with the affordable housing policy and all the examples of what's been done in the past. Of course, we explained that there were new incentives that they could take advantage of, that, what the percentage expectation might be. And we would work with them based on where their location was in town, what they, were thinking about wanting to do to figure out which incentives would probably be the most advantageous for them. And we would work with them one-on-one with that. We do that already with all kinds of different zoning conditions. And so it really is a case-by-case basis, and it's a discussion with them, about what seems to make sense. And so, for example, if they're located on a transit line, we would encourage them very strongly to consider, doing higher density development in order to get more units. That's just an example, because higher density benefits both the transit line and it benefits the development.
Right, and it also benefits the retail businesses that are nearby.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so Paul, I see you have your hand up, but hold on just a second. And one other person, but hold on just a second, because one of the, actually what Diane just described kind of leads into the question I had that I think I included with the email that went out to folks. And that is, let me just read it. Can we estimate the cost to a developer of providing either X affordable homes and or Y building ready lots? And then similarly, can we compare this estimate of what it costs the developer to do that with the estimates of the savings to the developer of various incentives, for example, greater development density? And the reason I bring it up is because this is very consistent with one of the slides that's in the affordable housing plan on page 34, where our consultants were saying, well, we should be able to say, well, this is what it's going to cost the developer to provide the affordable units, and this is the value of the incentives to them in this particular development. And I don't necessarily need an answer to this question right now, but I think it's something that, I think, Diane, this is something that might be helpful to your staff to understand, what that trade-off is, or what that balancing act is between the cost versus the benefit or the value to the developer. Would you agree with that, Diane?
We typically have the developer provide the numbers and make the argument for why, if they're offering 2 units, why that makes sense, based on their pro forma and what they're looking at doing. We do not typically do that math. I have no math majors on my staff. Okay. I always joke, if planners were good at math, we'd be engineers. So we do not do the math. We let the developers provide the information and explain to our elected officials why what they're doing makes sense, within the context of the development. And so far, we've ended up at around a little bit over the 2% mark. So if it goes to 5%, we're really just going to have to figure out, and I don't know who will do that. It's not going to be my current planning staff.
It sounds like it might be a new responsibility for the new the new planner on the staff. I'm just kidding. Okay, so I see there are a couple people with hands up. Paul, I think you may have been the first one, and I see Audra and a couple others have their hands up as well. So go ahead, Paul.
I just wanted an issue that came up early on in our meetings that I think we were going to circle back on, and I don't recall that we did. Specifically had to do with the responsibility of screening candidates to be the purchasers or renters of these affordable units. And there was, at one point, one of these documents suggested the town was going to do it. At a later point, the document was updated to say that the developer would do it. And then it was brought up that the developer may not be, there may be some legal hurdles in the developer's ability to do that. I don't recall that ever really got resolved.
No, I don't think it did either. And I think it's a good question. I think I've made a note of it. Yeah, and honestly, I think it's an even broader question than that. It's not only screening the renters and the purchasers, it's also, marketing. If the developer is providing the homes, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but at some point, I don't know whether the planners and others, like on the Housing Advisory Board, want to really get involved in telling the developers who are or market rate developers how they should be marketing their affordable homes. I think there's a bigger question there.
And that's some of the slides that that CJ had for today, but I do not feel like we can have a discussion without him. There's not anyone staff-wise that has expertise in this. So, if you all, I just don't think that we should do that today.
Yeah, no, I agree, Diane. I think we should wait till the next special meeting to go over that. And he already has the slides, so hopefully that will, that will be a part of the next special meeting. So Audra, you had your hand up, and I think there may have been at least one other person.
Yes, I just wanted to make a comment about the discussion around the pro forma and providing that to developers from the planning staff. CJ has done that for us on the last couple of occasions when we talked about affordable housing units. So I know that that was super helpful to us as council to see the cost related to providing affordable housing per unit. And at what percentage AMI and so on, and what benefits that would have. So I know that, it takes a little bit more when you're factoring in, the benefit of the incentive pieces of it too. But I will say I appreciated that effort from CJ to make that happen.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other comments on what we might be missing, what we don't understand about this affordable housing incentive zoning policy and process? I'm actually going to go around to the other people we haven't heard from yet and give them a chance to, and I know we're running out of time here, so we need to kind of do this on an expedited basis, but we've heard from Audra. We've heard from Paul. Val, do you have any items of information here that would help you understand what the application of this incentive zoning policy would be?
I keep coming back to how do we make sure those incentives don't go against the goals of the policy? Because overall, housing is not just the cost. So if you don't have transportation and access transportation, if you don't have community centers that they are going to provide other services. So that to me is that what's not clear to me. So I'm thinking about a lot of the Latino community because I interact a lot with them. I find that Apex is extremely white in the services that are provided community-wise. There's not a lot of Spanish speakers anyway. We don't have like in Raleigh, in Durham, in Carver, we have community centers that provide a lot of services. And to me, and every time we talk about these things, we're eliminating sidewalks. There's not a lot of private transportation. We're not talking about, closeness to community services for people. That to me is a big picture worry. I'm not into the nitty-gritty of any of this stuff, and I suspect that's the reason I'm here, that I'm just, connected to a diverse community.
Right.
And that's my big preoccupation. Every time we talk about reducing sidewalks, every time we don't talk about closeness to community services, health services, and my, specific, communities that might not have transportation, that might have language barriers. That's my big picture question. How does it all fit in to bring the diverse people? People tend to go where they can feel supported in many ways, not only when they can afford housing, diverse people who have different needs. I have not heard one thing about what do these people need besides a house. And if you want them to buy a house, to rent a house, you got to be thinking about that. And I haven't heard a thing of services, communal gardens, I don't know, trade schools. That's, I don't know, that I have for any of this. That's my worry with all of this.
You're looking at the whole community aspect as opposed to just the, just
Right.
providing shelter. Is
Right.
really what, yeah.
Because
yeah,
housing is not just shelter, right?
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Tina, do you have any thoughts on what you need to understand how the process would work here?
I don't. I appreciate Val's sentiments, and I think where I feel like I've ended up in the housing incentive policy is and I think I may have mentioned this on the last call, is that this is an honorable start. And so I think I see holes, I see concerns, I see good, positive things. But I think it's going to take seeing it in action, and getting feedback from the community, getting feedback from developers, before I think I'm able before I think as a community we can say if this policy is working and what adjustments need to be made. And so I think this is the where sort of where we've landed is a great start, and I'm looking forward to our first annual check-in and seeing how things go. But this is the start of a beautiful relationship. And looking forward to having these conversations in the community, which I think is really, really, really critical, and something I've kind of, I've been saying that we really need to bring the town to be more a part of these conversations once this is passed.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Audra, you had a comment.
Just related to the concerns that Valeria presented as well. I completely 100% agree. I'm definitely understanding of the need for further community support, and whether that is a combination of services from the town of Apex, Wake County, in and out of the county, working with transportation services. I completely agree. There's a lot more that needs to be done. With that's something I've been talking off and on with our town manager, community support services, and liaisons to be able to figure out exactly what those needs are, and be able to see how much support that we can provide as a town versus working with other organizations, whether it's nonprofit organizations or other governmental organizations, to make those things happen. That's part of the reason why we pushed ahead with Go Apex for transportation services to get that started, to then eventually expand. So we're definitely trying to think ahead. We don't know all the details at this point, but we're working toward them.
Okay. Good, thank you. Okay, let's see. Molly, did you have any thoughts on what we might be missing?
Yeah, I don't think in the incentive zoning policy we're missing anything that I can see, certainly. I want to echo Valeria and Tina's comments too. And I look at the zoning policy as just one piece of the whole puzzle, and look at what we can do for other support services and wraparounds and all other kinds of affordable housing related services. But I'm really glad we don't have to go through the administration and process manual line by line. Thank you very much.
Okay, good. Rhett, do you have any thoughts on, the missing pieces of the picture that this is on incentive zoning policy that you would like to see presented?
No, I think we've, sort of talked through what I've seen as most of them. I do have maybe some similar concern to Paul in that I don't want to go through the administration for sure. Like I don't want to go through that, but I do think that the zoning policy, we sort of went down a rabbit hole of discussing each one of these things individually and talking in detail, but we didn't really ever go back to the overall policy and make sure that what we're saying is consistent and that it, checks out to us, I guess, for lack of a better word. So, I think I had written down some comments on the actual policy when we first started this. And I don't know, if we need to go back to those. I can follow up with CJ separately, but I do think there is some need to talk about it as a general, make sure what we've said in our meetings is consistent. I don't know, there's something there that I feel like is missing, but I need to go back and look at the actual policy again that CJ recently provided to see, how it's been updated, if it's been updated, that kind of thing. So that's my only comment.
Okay, well, what we're running out of time here, Ben, and we want to set up the next meeting, but what I suggest to you, Rhett, and to others, kind of along the lines of what Diane was saying, is that why don't you kind of put together the comments, go back to the comments that you had before, and maybe at the beginning of the special meeting that's coming up next month, we can talk about those things.
So could I make a suggestion? It's really helpful for staff if you would provide those questions and comments.
Something is going on here.
I'm sorry. Can you not hear me?
Okay, Fernando, if you're still on and can help out, that would be a good time. I think we lost a connection here.
I can see everything, Phil.
Yes, sir. We're so good. Can you see the screen, sir?
I don't know if Phil can hear us.
It's showing for me.
Yep, I think Phil lost connection. I'll call him right now.
Fine for me too.
I can follow up with Phil later on this, but just for everyone that can hear me, it's very helpful for staff if you could provide any comments, questions that you have ahead of time, because CJ is not the only person that needs to answer these things. And so it's not as helpful for it to be brought up during a meeting if you already know your comments or questions ahead of time, because we could do the research and have answers for you. We could go over the questions so everyone hears them, but we have the answers for you. So I just really highly encourage you all to shoot an email to CJ. You can CC me, you can send it to me if you want, since he's out. And so we really need to get this moving. We need to get it adopted. And so we're really close to that end piece. And I just think it would be helpful if there are outstanding things, just go ahead and get them to us. And that way we can have the answers for you and be a more, we can just get through things faster. So Phil, I was just telling everyone if they could send their comments, concerns, questions to me and CJ, as soon as they can after this meeting, so we can be working on answers. And that way, when we go over them at the next meeting, it's not a bunch of we don't know, we have to check, which is what I think wastes time.
Yeah. Okay. No, that sounds good. That sounds very good. Okay. So I was dropped off the call momentarily, but I got back on. So the last thing we have to do here, unless there are any other comments on the incentive zoning policy, I would like to figure out the next time for the special meeting that we can get together. And I actually have two suggestions. Okay, well, here's some other suggestions. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I was looking at when we got together before, and so Nora, can you explain where these two proposals came from? Are these times when CJ and you and other staff are available?
Yeah, so these were just two proposed dates and times where staff will be available, but if there are other proposals that you all have, of course, we're open to that, but we just thought we would start out with these two to see if either would work.
Okay. So the other one that I was thinking of was basically at this time on Thursday, August 11th. I don't know whether people prefer doing it early in the morning like this, or basically around closing time at 5 o'clock. But that was the other possibility I thought of. So let me just ask, starting with Wednesday, August 10th at 8:15 in the morning, is there anyone that wouldn't be able to make that particular date and time?
I would not.
Okay, and that's Paul. Okay.
I was going to ask if we're going to have a couple of different dates to pick from. Maybe could they be in different weeks? Because I'm out of town on business that whole week. Okay,
well, so that's why the one date that I was considering was August 3rd, which is the previous week, at 8:15 in the morning. So so Paul, you would not be able to make either of those proposed dates, or even the 5 p.m. date on Thursday.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's look at August 3rd, which is the week before Wednesday at 8:15. Is there anyone that would? Of course, we don't have two members with us. Jacob and Seth are not here, so we're gonna have to check with them as well. But of the people that are here, is there anyone that can't make Wednesday, August 3rd at 8:15? And Nor, do you think that would be a possibility for you and CJ to back that up 1 week?
I think we could do that. I'm, of course, not sure about CJ's schedule right off the top of my head, but
Nora, I have both your schedules pulled up, and both of you are showing an 8:30 to 9:30 meeting. Is that just internal with the two of you?
That may be, yeah.
It looks like it. So I think that would potentially work, but sure. I'm not sure. I'm on vacation that day, and it looks like Amanda's busy. So if we could get, like I said, if we could get those questions ahead of time, we can get the answers for CJ, and we wouldn't need to attend anyway.
Okay. All right.
Phil, this is Audra.
Yep.
I am not available that first week in August, the 3rd or the 4th.
Okay. All right. All right. So we're back at our normal challenge of trying to figure out a date that works for everyone. Tina, I see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, can we, with considering August being just the middle of summer, I think it might be easier. I know we wanted to schedule the call now. I think it might be easier to do a doodle poll. That way everyone is able to participate in some capacity.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. I was thinking the same thing. So, Nora, I know we did a doodle poll before, but I think for maybe the first special meeting that we did. And so could you, but even when you do the doodle poll, you have to figure out what the potential dates are, right?
Correct.
So we know that, go ahead.
I was going to say, I am available on that second option that's listed on the screen, which is the August 11th at 8:15.
Okay. And that was that Diane speaking?
That was Audra.
Audra? Okay. Thank you.
So I think including doing the doodle poll and including maybe as an option and starting with staff availability, I feel like might be the most helpful. And then staff, Nora and Diane, and I know CJ isn't here, but for everyone else, I think having more than 2 dates is helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
and definitely different days, times, different days and different times, different days, different times, different weeks is going to be the most helpful.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with that.
So I just wanted to mention that if you want an in-person meeting, it's sometimes difficult to get the meeting room. So I think if you guys find a date that works, if there's not a meeting room, it will be a virtual meeting.
Okay. Well, and I'm fine with that. I just thought we would try, if it was possible, to do it in at least hybrid. But I understand that adds another element of reserving the room as well. So Nor, do you have enough information to do a doodle poll? I think that we may have to go to actually the third week in August if Audra has problems with the 3rd and the 4th, and Paul has trouble with that week. We may have to go to the week of the 15th, the 15th through the 19th. So, but why don't you first do a poll of the staff, see when they might be available. I mean, it's even possible that we have to move to September to have this meeting because that gets us out of vacation season. But let's see what the staff availability is first, okay?
Sure, that sounds good. And then would you like a doodle poll to be sent out with multiple dates, including September?
Yeah, I think so. At this point, I think that would be wise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so you'll do first the doodle poll, or first the polling of the staff, and then you'll send out a set of dates that will work for the staff, and you'll send that out to the board.
Sure. Yes, that works. And I think even with multiple dates, it may be difficult to have everyone available, but I think with mixing up the dates and weeks, we can try to find one that works.
Yeah. Okay.
And Nora, if you could include the maybe as an option, I feel like that often frees up, if I have a conflict, but it's a movable, if I have a conflict, but it's movable, I would put maybe. So I think that would be helpful if you include maybe as when you're creating the doodle poll, include maybe as an option.
Sure, that works.
Instead of just a yes or no.
We can also set a date of when responses should be due, so that we could see everyone's availability and go from there.
Yeah. That would be great.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That sounds good. I think that we've done everything we can. We're about to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you, Paul. I don't know that we even need a second for that, but all those in favor, just a voice vote, please say aye, and I'm going to say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay, and you can provide the pizza if you don't want to adjourn. Okay, we are standing adjourned. Thank you all. I'm sorry that it went over time, but we had some good discussion on